I'm going. Okay, we're going. Good afternoon. My name is Tracy Kronzak. I'm Partner Training and Enablement Manager at Salesforce.org. And I'm here today to tell you a little bit about what it means to build integrated apps for the nonprofit Success Pack and the higher education data architecture. A little bit about me. I have some certifications. Some of you may have known me in my former life. I was a Salesforce MVP. I co-founded an ISV or an SI partnership company called Bright Step Partners, and I also had the very privileged activity of sitting on the Nonprofit Success Pack Advisory Board. So it's always a pleasure to see our community, and it's always a pleasure to see how many people are enthused about it. Forward-looking statements. How many of you have heard this slide more than once today? Right on. What is Salesforce.org? How many of you don't know Salesforce.org? We all know Salesforce.org? Amazing. Okay, there's one or two people. We are a social impact business. We were founded in 2001. We actually support the nonprofit higher education and burgeoning K-12 ecosystems for our United States and also now globally as well. One of the things that I want to be clear about, we're going to move really fast on this presentation because we want to have time for Q&A. I have a few folks seated in the crowd who are going to be keeping me honest throughout the presentation, also who will tackle me when I go off script. Here's what we're going to be talking about today. When we're working with the Nonprofit Success Pack, one of the problem statements that I wanted to bring to this presentation was, I'm an ISV or I'm a developer and I want to integrate into the Nonprofit Success Pack or the higher education data architecture. Why am I doing it? How am I doing it? And what are some of the differentiators we need to be mindful of when we're working with these applications on top of Salesforce Enterprise Platform? We've had a few folks in our application ecosystem caught by surprise through the years, and that's always not nice. So I'm going to go very fast and high level and talk a little bit about the things that are going to be most important for you to be mindful of as developers. Something else I want to say, and that is, when it comes to these applications, the NPSP and HEDA as we call them, there's a past state, a present state, and a future state of what this is going to look like when you're integrating with them. And there are methodologies that are still appropriate that will soon be changing. So I'm going to try and cover what is and what will be a little bit under that forward-looking statement slide, and then hopefully also give you some sense as to why we're making these changes. So what are the Nonprofit Success Pack and HEDA? How many of you have not heard of the Nonprofit Success Pack and HEDA? Okay, like 5 people. We're going to go through this really quick then. 1, the Nonprofit Success Pack and the higher education data architecture are industry standard solutions for nonprofits and higher education institutions. What we do with these applications is create a B2C model on top of the Salesforce Enterprise B2B platform. And we do this in support of the business process needs of both higher education institutions and nonprofits, soon to be, by the way, burgeoning K-12 institutions as well. You're going to start hearing more about that from us as time goes by. Both applications are supported and developed by Salesforce.org. And one of the amazing things about this application is that they are both open source and community driven. How many of you have gone to a sprint for one of our applications? Right. So there's a couple of hand raisers. We actually love to engage our community in the development of these applications, which means that you as developers can engage with the community in the development of these applications. So what does the Nonprofit Success Pack support? Very empirically, fundraising, engagement, and volunteering. And I've given some examples of the kinds of objects that are engaged within the Salesforce Enterprise Platform, as well as some of the ones that we create in support of nonprofit business process. By the numbers, at the end of last year, we now have 12,300 nonprofits using the NPSP, which represents roughly 50% of the overall 30,000 nonprofits who are using Salesforce.org as their primary deployer of Salesforce. I guess that's a word. I don't know. The important thing to know about this is that because we're community driven, we move very fast. We push upgrades to the NPSP every 2 weeks like clockwork, which means last year there were 26 major and minor releases, spanning 80 countries, by the way. What does the higher education data architecture support? This is a newer product. We just came online with it in March of last year. Think of a student's journey and all of their engagement with a higher education institution, their connections to people, the things that you as a counselor, you as a student-engaged person at an institution would want to know. That is what's built into the higher education data architecture. This is built as an extensible architecture, and we refer to it as such because it's actually very lightweight. And we keep it that way, intentionally so, because what we know is that the needs of higher education institutions are very, very large and complex. So we want to provide a lightweight centralization of a data model for all of them to use. Again, HEDA, since it was launched, we've now deployed it in 530 higher education institutions worldwide, and it is completely Lightning native. Now, anybody who's tried to build something Lightning native about 1.5 years ago will know the commitment that that required. And therefore, you will know now the commitment that we have to this product and also to the Nonprofit Success Pack as well. So what do these products do to the enterprise platform, and why is it important for you as developers, as integrators, to know this? One, the Nonprofit Success Pack is packaged as a series of 5 legacy managed package overarching with the Cumulus managed package, aka what you will see as the NPSP namespace. The NPSP package carries the code, the feature, the metadata, and configuration, and it references those 5 legacy packages that came up through time. One of the very interesting things to know about the NPSP in specific is that you, the community, you our partners, and you, our institutions, actually had a hand in developing this as early as 2008. And you gave it to us and entrusted it to us to shepherd forward, and that is what we hope we continue to do with it. So when these are packaged, you'll see that you not only have the 5 legacy packages, which are households, contacts and organizations, recurring donations, relationships, and affiliations. We also have added on 2 other applications designed with the community, volunteers for Salesforce and campaign tools. What is the most important thing that this managed package does to the enterprise platform? Anybody want to say it? Peter, you were saying it earlier. It changes the account model. That is correct. That is one thing to be very aware of when you're integrating the Salesforce, is that you're not going to get the expected account behavior of contacts to organization. Each of these applications put in their own B2C model. On the nonprofit success side, we call it a household account, and on the higher ed side, we call it the administrative account. Pause there, because actually, you know, this is going further and further under the umbrella of things that once were in terms of how you're going to integrate to these platform products, and I'll explain that a little further on. Here's our data model. If you take one photo of one slide in this entire presentation, take this one, because here's why. Those bit.ly links are going to tell you exactly what every single field does inside the Nonprofit Success Pack, and it's also going to give you our full entity relationship diagram as a publicly accessible document. If you're starting to see a theme here, it's because as part of the open source commitment we put behind these products, we make all of their information available to you as developers and also as consultants. So one of the things you'll want to be mindful of is how the current packaging and fields are utilized inside of these applications. Nonprofit Success Pack being a little bit older and larger, we've got that a little bit better documented right now. Higher education data architecture is packaged in a very similar way, except now think of the higher education data architecture as the platform upon which future things can rest. So, one of the things that you've probably heard us talking about building is the Salesforce Advisor Link, or Student Advisor Link as we've also called it, or SAL. This is a product that is now going to be dependent upon and rest upon the higher education data architecture. What this means for you as a developer and as an integrator is that you too have the opportunity to build your own packages that rest upon the higher education data architecture. And that's why we talk about it as an architecture, even though it's deployed as a managed package program. Here's our data model for HEDA. It's really, really simple. And it's really simple because of those complex needs and because of the scalable enterprise needs into the institutions into which it's being deployed. So it supports that student journey, and it supports that student's life cycle across an institution, and it does so with these custom objects. And again, why the account and contact are highlighted on there is because it also puts in a B2C account to contact model, which this particular managed application calls the administrative account model. And this is stuff to be mindful of, because when I point you to where all our documentation is, you'll then understand what you're looking at when you read it. How that data model supports an academic journey, you can see here. You see we use accounts to represent institutions, departments, programs, and then we use an object called affiliations to really track the longitudinal cycle of that student's journey and indicate which of these affiliations is most primary to that student. And of course, we also have course term and other offerings inside of it as well. So, summarizing what these applications are doing inside of Salesforce, we put in a B2C model around which several key things rotate. One, for customers, we actually have a configuration panel for both applications. Customers have a substantial amount of agency over how these applications perform inside their Salesforce instance. Two, both applications create objects called affiliations and relationships, although as you'll see on the next slide, they're used slightly different. Three, the Nonprofit Success Pack leverages opportunities to carry the cash that nonprofits are raising in their fundraising efforts. And why would this be important as a developer? Because sometimes when we get integrated applications, they create a custom object to carry that cash, which takes it out of the customer's reporting chain on opportunities. And the last two things, table-driven trigger management and error handling framework. I want to say that we have some training materials now available specifically on TDTM, available to you as partners and available to you as customers. But TDTM, if you think about how Apex is executed and that it is executed as an unordered process, the goal of TDTM is to create order from chaos. And you as developers, either at ISVs or as developers in our community, have the opportunity to inject your own custom code into our ordered, trigger-driven table management table, which means you can then create order from chaos in the execution of your code as well. Everybody got that? You want me to say that like 60 times fast? Ordered execution. And lastly, each application also has a very robust error handling framework that'll report back out to you as admins what exactly has gone wrong and where. And that's an amazing troubleshooting tool when you really start leveraging it. I'm seeing some nodding heads, so I see some people who maybe have possibly seen the output of this. Yes. Here's another way of looking at it. One way I like to talk about these apps, which my elders at Salesforce.org may tell me I shouldn't, is I tend to talk of the higher education data architecture as sort of the grandchild of the Nonprofit Success Pack, because they share these similarities. They change the B2B model of the core enterprise platform. They introduce relationships to understand relationships between people. They're both open source, and they both have the TDTM table and error handling methodology behind them. Where they differentiate is in the details of how these things operate. So you see on the side of HEDA the administrative account model. You see on the on the nonprofit side, the household model, and on the higher education side, the administrative account model. You see that HEDA is driven on student centricity, whereas the Nonprofit Success Pack is driven on constituent centricity. That's the C in the nonprofit industry. We don't call them customers, we call them constituents. We see that affiliations engage in a slightly different role for each of these applications. And we see that on the side of HEDA, we are really sincerely committed to it as a platform for future expansion. And on the Nonprofit Success Pack, we've built it out to include some key business processes that nonprofits need, including fundraising and volunteering. Here's some fun stuff. What do we do and what do we not do when we're integrating to this? And remember at the start of this, I indicated that there's a past state, a present state, and a future state. And some of these things will each be rooted in those states of being, and you'll see why when I get to like the future roadmap fun stuff. First of all, how do these applications handle people? We align data on the contact record. That means that if you're doing a custom integration, either as a developer or an ISV, what will support our customers' success is keeping that data on the contact record for them. Sometimes we see integrations that want to create 1,000 custom objects to hold data that could really be changed on the contact record. Other times, we see integrations that will not put data on the contact record. That means that our customers are still going back and forth trying to figure out how to report on the output of an integrated application. Don't use person accounts. Don't, please, please, pretty please. We don't use person accounts on these applications. Pretty please. Like, what's that? Don't use person accounts. Thank you. And this is intentional. And we've gotten some pushback from our developer community, and here's why. Because person accounts is now being built out on the core platform, but at the time that the Nonprofit Success Pack was built, and for the business processes that the higher education data architecture supports, those person accounts are insufficient to carry what we believe is truly necessary to represent that person's journey through each application. So don't, pretty please, don't use person accounts. We also don't use contacts to multiple accounts, largely due to the fact that it's a newer platform feature. This is in the Nonprofit Success Pack what the affiliations object carries. And it is also partially in a higher education data architecture what the affiliations object carries. When you integrate, you can defer to either of the account models, and there are some standard methodologies by which doing so. One interesting twist of which is that if you leave the account field blank on a contact, it will not create a private contact. It will substitute in either your household account or your default administrative account for that. The best practice for association uses the affiliations objects in both cases. And lastly, because of our B2C model, we do make some changes to how leads are converted, and you as developers will need to be aware of that if you are going to integrate and push data into leads. Everybody got that one? I'm going to change it. Hurry up. Right. Handling donations explicitly in the Nonprofit Success Pack. We align data on the opportunity records, and we use contact roles. Again, one of our promises to our customers with these products is that if you picked this tool up in 2009, you'll still be able to work with it today. And that's a really important part of our mission at Salesforce.org. So consequently, we're using opportunities to carry cash and contact roles to show the relationship of that cash to people. We have a payments object. One of the things that sometimes integrations will do is create a separate transactions object that's hung off of opportunities. And in fact, you don't need to. You can use our payments object. We do have a recurring donations object that you can look into the use cases of to support pledges and also to support constituent recurring donations. We do use campaigns through standard campaign lookups on opportunities. And lastly, campaigns for explicitly nonprofits, because this is where the Nonprofit Success Pack is geared. Campaigns are a linchpin object for nonprofits. They use them for everything. They use them for events. They use them for fundraising tracking. They use them for direct mail. So if you're pushing data in and out of Salesforce, know that one of the linchpin objects for our customers is indeed campaigns. Few additional notes. Many nonprofits and explicit, although some higher education institutions as well, align to what is called an integration user account. That is basically so that they can keep one user account for all integrations. It's something to be aware of when you're thinking about like data skew and like record ownership, just to be aware that that happens. Secondly, understand the business process use cases of these applications before building custom. You can actually leverage them for a lot. And if you're curious how our community is leveraging them, you can go to certain places that I'll show you where you can learn about how our customers are using. That's coming up in another slide. Leverage these on-platform enhancements such as TDTM. They actually will help you abide by the best practice of code inside of Salesforce, and we make them available, and you can inject managed package code into them with a managed package. So therefore, these are there to help with efficiency, particularly when we get to large data volumes and many, many processes happening at once. And the last one's a personal peeve. Don't build an integration on Visualforce, pretty please. I came out of a nonprofit that, you know, for years had integrations, and it was all Visualforce panes, and we couldn't report on that data. What we want for our customers is that true, genuine ability to say, here is the information that is most important about your constituents and your students, and here's the applications that are putting it there so that you can report on it. Lastly, one of the joys of our community is you will hear from it. Good, bad, and ugly. You will hear from it. And we love our community for that. So engage with our community and be a part of it, and you can learn so much. There's an opportunity to be a part of a group of people who are some of the most enthused Salesforce customers I've ever encountered. That's our little mascot, by the way. I'll show you. That's Lionheart Astro there. That's our little mascot. So I put the heart next to the, you know, you'll hear from us. Lastly, where are we going next? So remember I said there's what is and what will be. One of the things that you're going to need to decide is when you start building an integration, particularly right now at this moment in time, what are you going to build on and what will be for you? All the methodologies I've talked about are methodologies that have existed in our ecosystems for a long time. Where we're going with this is beginning with the Nonprofit Success Pack. We're building out an object called the Batch Data Import object. So imagine if instead of having to worry about any of these things, you can push your data directly and flatly into a single table and have the NPSP do the heavy lifting and put it where it needs to be inside the application. That's in the works. We're also working on RESTful API calls specifically for business processes such as, I don't know, create new person, create new donation. I'm scaring the hell out of my tech and product vice president. Don't listen to me. Anyhow, we are working on RESTful API calls. I don't actually know which ones we're going to choose first yet, but it is something that's on our radar screen as well. Lastly, why am I telling you all of this? Is because as our ecosystem grows, we need to understand how integrated applications are working with our products. Some of you who are partners have heard that we're launching an application compatibility program in the higher education space. And it is our goal to build this out into both ecosystems. It is a way of giving everyone assurance that when an application pushes data inside of one of our applications, it actually does so by certain criteria that are to the benefit of customers reporting on that data. So currently, we're beginning with the higher ed. Look to hear more from us on that. It's a process that's going to develop slowly over time. Lastly, I want to give you a little bit of enthusiasm about our world, because our world is amazing. And it is because our products are built on the open source. So what does this really mean? When you join our ecosystem as a customer, as a developer, or as an ISV, you're going to join the Power of Us Hub, and you're going to be able to participate in the literal real-time construction of these applications as our community grows. We do community sprints where community members will come together and be like, we need reports on this, so we're going to build it and then give it to you. And you as staff can learn how to do a lot of stuff by joining us on those sprints. We have advisory boards. I mentioned I was on the Nonprofit Success Pack advisory boards, and that is to elevate both the voice of our customers and partners to these applications. We have our own idea exchange that are explicit to these applications. And lastly, our open source is all released and accessible and attainable on GitHub. Speaking of release management, here's a few quick notes. 1, obviously we go a lot quicker than the seasonal releases. 2, we have update groups in the Power of Us Hub that will tell you when and how these updates are coming. Same for higher ed. And if you're not able to access the Power of Us Hub, we also publish it all on GitHub for you as well. Yeah, I'll show you the one that you really want to take a photo of. Where do we learn more? Here's another slide that if you take one photo, take a photo of this slide. Because this is our GitHub repository for all of our products. HEDA is referred to HEDAP on our GitHub repository. The Nonprofit Success Pack is referred to as its original code name, which is Cumulus. We have nonprofit and higher education trails that will explicitly help you understand the vernacular of both ecosystems. We have roles pages that are structured roles learning pages. Some of them have gated content, but where this is going to be important is you as partners and you as ISVs can go there and see a coherent path of things that you need to be aware of when it comes to learning our applications. Lastly, Michael and Martin are our contacts for our ISV program, and we are sincere about wanting to work with all of our ISVs in this program. There's their contact information. Take a photo. Martin's looking at me like, please don't. And lastly, for those of you who are partners in our program and for any of our customers, come to the Power of Us Hub, because honestly, this is where our community lives and breathes every day, and so much integrated and so much collaborative learning takes place about our applications that you're missing out if you're not there. Thank you. I have a couple of plants in the audience, so if there are some Q&A questions, the big clock is telling me we've got about 6 minutes left for questions. So anybody who wants to ask, I'll kind of hop down if there's questions. Nobody. All right. Oh, wait, we have one.
Hey, Tracy, I'm wondering, how do you get on in a community advisory board, and how do you get invited to the sprints?
Oh, good question. Okay, so if you imagine the Power of Us Hub as a highly engaged community of like 30,000 or more people, how you get to become on a community advisory board is you're voted there by the community. So once a year, the advisory boards will open up nominations for community members who are both people who work at nonprofits and higher education institutions, as well as staff of our partners. And you can nominate yourself or be nominated, although the process is shifting over time a little bit, and you can be voted to be a part of it. In terms of the sprints, we announce all of our sprint information in chatter groups on the Power of Us Hub. And in fact, there's a nonprofit sprint chatter group, and there is a sprint coming up for the Nonprofit Success Pack. It's going to be in Chicago, right in front of Midwest Dreamin'. There's also a higher education data architecture sprint group, and that's going to be happening at the end of July. And I can't remember the event that it's attached to, but it'll be 2 days of working on community needs and structure around the higher education data architecture. Yeah?
Do you have an ETA on the data importer for Nonprofit Service Pack?
Do we have an ETA on the build out of the BDI object? Plant number 1 in the audience.
It's in your orgs now. So we're going to be rolling it out in phases over the course of the next probably 6 to 10 weeks as we continue to implement features on it. Contact account matching is going to be available. It's in your orgs now. I believe we have some limited opportunity and payment stuff that's sitting in pre-release sandboxes right now as well. So that should be streaming out continuously. We took this week off to come here, but we'll be back at it next week.
You know, we're going to go through a bunch of iterations.
Yeah, we're going to iterate on it. So we sometimes get a little recalcitrant to give hard timelines, but yes, in the next few months, these things are really going to get built out. That was Kevin Bromer, by the way, our Vice President of Product Delivery, one of the original shepherds of the Nonprofit Success Pack. Yeah, that's right.
A question on the K through 12. Is that going to be like part of the HEDA, or is that going to be a separate, like, this is the K through 12 package that you install on top of your org?
Having that conversation literally over the course of the next couple of weeks. So
Yeah.
keep your eye out. Right now, we want to leverage HEDA as much as we possibly can, but we also want to be able to support everything that we need to support K through 12. So it's a little bit TBD, but it's an active conversation. If you have thoughts and feedback, we welcome that.
It is TBD, and we will be building that out more. We'll have more clarity on that come Dreamforce, I suspect. Forward-looking statement. Other questions? Great. Folks, it is always a privilege to talk with you today. If you have stuff you want to take offline, you know what I look like. You can find me anywhere. Thank you so very much, and have a wonderful Trailhead X.